Hello there. Just making sure my settings are right. And welcome to Existential Sunday. Welcome to all of you who are watching this via replay, which is most of you. In fact, I don't know that anybody's actually hearing what I'm saying right now live. So welcome to all of you. If we've not met, my name is Corey. I'm a husband, I'm a father, podcast host, writer, speaker. And every week I put on, host, speak on, am part of this broadcast called Existential Sunday, which is an extension of the podcast. This is a space for folks going through deconstructing, decolonizing, or anyone else that just wants to watch. Even those of you that may want to hate watch. I get it. All are welcome here. I don't always do this, but today I'm going to do it. I'm going to say good morning to you coming in live right now. Good morning, Brian, Tabitha, Nikki. Good to see you this morning. I'm going to let some folks come in here before I start speaking because I don't want those that are live to miss the bulk of what I'm saying. Auntie Gwen is here. Hey, Stephen Matlock. Good to see you. I feel like I ain't seen you in a while, Stephen. Good morning, good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is when you're watching this live or later. Hello to all of you. I got a lot of stuff I want to say today. Hey, Becca. Let me say hi to a couple more people, and then I'm going to say all the stuff I want to say because I don't even know how it's going to come out. Okay, but you want to make sure that you are listening. In fact, if you want to hit that share button, you can. If you're a part of Existential Sunday on a regular basis and you're like, well, duh, of course I'm going to share it. I'm reminding you to please share because I don't think Facebook's letting everybody see this stuff either, by the way. But that's not a conversation for another day. So feel free to hit the share button. Good morning, Jen and Kelly and Megan and Sarah. Okay, no more comments. Let me get out of here because I am going to be hella distracted. I think I just officially became Bay Area by saying hella distracted. Okay. So let me start at the beginning of why I'm going to say what I'm saying today. Have you ever felt like you ever saw someone that you hadn't seen in a while, maybe on Facebook or like you saw them in person, and they did not look or sound or present in the way that you once knew them? Like they just are like, I've seen these side by sides with like Marshawn Lynch, who's the football player. Like they showed Marshawn Lynch in high school versus Marshawn Lynch, the football player, the professional NFL player. And you're like, I don't even think that's the same dude, right? They just look, they look different. You don't recognize them. And I've had some encounters over the last, several years where I'm having conversations with folks who, I've known most of my life, a good portion of my life, folks who love me, folks who I love and still love, and it's all that's the same. But they don't quite recognize me. They don't, when they hear me speaking or see something that I've written, there's like this bit of shock, right? And I thought, I bet I'm not the only person who experiences this, especially any person that's kind of been going through or started on a journey of deconstructing or decolonizing. Like if you're a person who is white and you've come to realize how much whiteness has been destructive to our society, and then you become aware of that and you start saying Black Lives Matter, or you start going to Black Lives Matter rallies, or you leave your church because you start to see how much anti-Blackness is a part of the fabric of how your church presents itself. And you've got family and friends at Thanksgiving, Christmas, or whatever it is that are like, you've changed, man. And they can't understand it. Or they ask questions in such a way that are trying to keep you in the box that they're used to you being in. So as I thought about that, I'm like, okay, how do I talk about that? Because I want to, two things I want to do today. And I don't always do this. I want to like process some stuff for my own sake of like health and centering. And hopefully folks who have reached out to me will watch this because you've got questions and today I got answers. And also just for those of you who I know can completely identify with this. Right. So there's this like old story. It's from the First Testament of the Bible. This old story about this guy who was living in a small community, in a small tribe. And some of the folklore around this story that's not actually in the Bible, but some of the folklore that scholars have talked about around this story is that this guy living in this community where people worshipped idols, because during this time in the ancient world, everyone had idols, tokens, things that they like would set up on altars, and that would be where they located their god. They knew where their god was located because they crafted the god themselves. So they would craft their own gods out of wood or stone or whatever, and you set it up, and that was your idol. And if you like went on a little trip or something, you put that idol in your pocket or in your bag or something, you brought the idol with you. Well, it was folklore around this story of this man who I'm about to talk about, like, is that he started to be like, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. How can this be God, but we made it? Like, how can we like call this thing that I watched you craft be God? And so this man left his tribe following a voice that no one else could hear, led by a spirit that nobody else could see. And he left this established community and family structure to go out into the wilderness, where the ancient folks used to refer to people who wandered the wilderness as the dusty ones. They talk really bad about those folks. They don't know how to bury their dead. They don't have any structure, yada, yada. So this person left everything that was familiar, everything that like he had known growing up, and went out into the wilderness with the dusty ones, following a voice that no one else could hear and a spirit that no one else could see. And the person I'm talking about is Abraham. Abraham, who went on to be ultimately, whether the stories of Abraham are historic or legend or myth, these stories and the story of the life of Abraham became the foundation for Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. All have their roots in this story of this man leaving what was familiar and comfortable and everyone else had been doing to follow this formless, invisible spirit that he heard within. He got up, responded to it, and moved. And I think that like all of us can like really identify with that. Like there's been times in all of our lives where we heard a voice that no one else could hear, not in like, and I don't want to be like, never mind. We heard not that we're hearing voices, although some folks actually do hear voices, right? That's a thing. I mean, that's the thing we need to like actually acknowledge. That is a thing. But that we've heard something that didn't make sense to people around us, and we had a choice to make. We could either follow that voice, that invisible, formless spirit that no one else can see or hear, and see where it leads, see where it takes us. Or we could stay with the fixed constructs that we are familiar with, that we know, that everyone says are constant, that everyone around us says you have to do it this way. And most people, when faced with the option of going, I'm going to follow this inspiration, this life, this joy, this fullness, this space that I'm feeling invited into, are too afraid of the space or too afraid of the leaving the structure, because everyone says that when you leave the structure to become one of the dusty ones, that you're an outcast, you're out there, and people won't recognize you. Well, I can tell you from personal experience, being one of the dusty ones, that people don't recognize me all the time. Someone called me earlier this week, who I love dearly, still, and will for the rest of my life, and they will love me the rest of their life. And they said, I just want to understand. And I said, do you? Because if you actually wanted to understand, like there's a curiosity that you can bring, and then there's a judgment that you can bring, or there's a certainty that you can bring. And so often when people approach you as you're going through like a deconstructing process, which basically means that for our context today, let me make it very plain for us, right? Those of us who have been a part of any religious tradition that we felt we could not ask questions in, that we felt was not conducive to a ever evolving, complex world, we started to feel like the answers that we're getting are too binary. They're too restrictive. They don't have enough space for people that I know and love. Like if you've ever felt alive, I can say from my own personal experience, I've had some moments where I wasn't at church. I wasn't with Christians. We weren't even talking about God. And somehow in the middle of that conversation with people that like I would have thought would be far from God, and when I was a part of a more deeply fundamentalist Christian tradition, I would have thought that those people are far from God. And when I go out from the tribe and away from the man-made constructs of God, and I'm around other dusty ones, there is something alive and full and inviting and welcoming and big that feels like God to me. Like I felt alive. I felt full of compassion and joy and all of the virtues that are supposed to accompany something that we call God, something that is bigger than human. There should be these things that accompany that are not abuse and trauma. See, in the wake of so much of the religious tradition that we have all been exposed to, especially in the United States, we've seen so much abuse and trauma where we're supposed, if God has been there, right? If ultimate goodness and love and peace and joy has been there, you would think that there would not be so much trauma and pain, abuse, hurt, harm. I actually this morning saw a post from one of the, I don't want to be mean. So I don't mean this to be mean, but I mean this to like help you understand who I'm talking about without naming names. I was on actually Julie sent me this Instagram in my inbox of one of the celebrity pastors who was responding to Lil Nas X. Now, I don't know all that's happening with Lil Nas X. I haven't seen the music video. I see he's got some devil shoes that apparently, if you wear them or buy them, they're going to send you straight to hell. I think they do have like a satanic symbol or something on them. So of course, that lots of people are sort of outraged by that, which is what it is. I mean, lots of Christians, I should say. I mean, this is just kind of par for the course with this particular expression of Christianity. Well, Lil Nas X talked about his trauma from religious folks about the fact that he was gay. He talked about how, he was never accepted, right? And this celebrity pastor screenshot Lil Nas X tweet and then like commented this comment. And I don't know all that he said. I mean, it was basically this young man needs to be loved and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. But in the midst of all that, he says, but I do believe the Bible is clear on this issue, meaning this issue of same-sex attraction, same-sex relationship, LGBTQ plus stuff. And y'all, I don't often comment on people's stuff. In fact, I rarely comment. But for some reason, maybe it was the fact that this was a young black man, young queer black man, I had to respond. I had to say something, right? Because, and you guys know, if you've been watching Existential Sunday long enough, you know that how many words are there? Well, the 4 words that trigger me almost more than anything else in the world are these 4 words. The Bible is clear. I hate those words combined in a sentence because they don't belong together. Especially when we're talking about the Bible's sexual ethic. They do not belong together. not going to all that today, but they do not belong together. And when I see harm, and then I see in the name of help more harm, I go, that is too binary. That is too small to call God. Anytime that we can like put a box around it and hold it and restrict it, it's not divine. The dog may have to come down and use the bathroom shortly, so just disregard that. We have and if the dog does come down, I'll show you her because she's adorable, our adorable new puppy. I just hear her barking and figured you did also. Now, let me wrap all this up and be done with it. Let me tell you this. I want to move into a little bit of like some talk about the resurrection, the story of resurrection, because I'm not going to be here next week on Existential. It's Easter Sunday. I didn't even know it was Easter Sunday until earlier this week. Snuck up on me. And many of you probably have a church you'll be going to. I will go live on Good Friday to talk about the time that Jesus prayed like an atheist. And I want to like talk about that. But I do want to talk about like how this kind of all plays into like the Jesus story a little bit, because John writes the story of Jesus' resurrection. If she wants to come down, you can let her down, by the way. I'm just doing a live. It's no big deal. It's just live Facebook. Nobody's going to die if the dog comes down. So you can bring her down and go to the bathroom. So sorry about that. There's a story of the resurrection, right? And John writes the story, and the disciples and some of the women who were with the disciples, which for whatever reason they don't get considered disciples, which is crazy to me. They should be considered disciples. They were following Jesus in the same way the men were. But whatever, that's neither here nor there. The disciples and Mary, and I think Martha, whoever, were there at the tomb. They show up to the tomb, and Jesus is not there. They expected to see Jesus there. They were going to like visit him and maybe do some burial stuff for him. Jesus is not there, as the story goes. And the male disciples leave, and Mary stays behind. And she sees this man who John says she thinks is the gardener. And she says, I'm looking for my master. I don't know where they laid him. And he turns to her and says her name. Can I show everybody the dog? Everyone wants to see her. Okay, come here. This is Rujun. This is Rujun. She's going to go out to the bathroom, but that's what you've been hearing upstairs. Okay, say hi, Rujun. Okay, you don't want to say hi. Okay, so she thinks it's the gardener. Well, I'll pause so you guys can awe about the puppy, because I know you're probably awing. If you're not awing, you're not even a freaking human being. How you're not awe at a dog that precious. Okay. She thinks it's the gardener. Jesus turns to her and says her name. And then she realizes, oh my gosh, this is Jesus. This is Jesus. But I didn't recognize him. It was different than the Jesus I knew before. And then Jesus says the oddest thing to her. I guess, you imagine that when you think someone's dead and you find out they're alive, that you go to embrace them. And apparently that's what happened. And Jesus said, don't hold on to me. Don't hold on to me. She doesn't recognize him. Then when she does, Jesus says, don't hold on to me. And I think for our purposes, especially when you're talking about deconstructing and being people who live in a deconstructing and decolonizing, any God that you can hold on to and keep in their place is not a God. It is what Abraham left his community to join the dusty ones over. It is an idol. It is something that we created. It is something that we always know what place it's in. It is what Dietrich Bonhoeffer referred to as God in the machine. It is the God that can be wherever I need the God to be fixed. It's at a fixed location, whether that's fixed in my emotions, fixed in my thoughts, fixed in my community. I know how this God behaves. This God will always do this when you do this. If I do this, this God will do that. If I tithe, this God will do this. If I pray this way, this God will do this. If I do this and this happens, it's very formulaic, lever pulling God. It's a God in the machine That is an idol that we created because that is not the nature of anything divine and bigger than human. We cannot box it in and say, you can only be found here in this place, in this way, if people pray this way, if people talk this way, if people dress this way, if people sleep with these people, then God will be there. We can't. That's not divine. The divine is wild and big and expansive and uncontrollable like the freaking ocean. You go out to the beach and you try to stand there and build something that keeps the ocean from going where the ocean wants to go. You try to go out in the wild and tell a lion what it can eat or not eat. You try to go out on a windy day and make the wind stop blowing this direction and go that direction. You can't, because they're bigger than you. We need to stop trying to keep people from experiencing the vastness of the Creator, wherever that takes them. Like and I say we now, I'm going to talk specifically to those of us that come from the Christian tradition over the last 10 to 15 years. We have been singing, Spirit lead me where my trust is without borders. But yet when the Spirit leads people where their trust is without borders, when they walk upon the water, wherever you would call me, we go, oh, you're too far out. Come back. You can't go there. There's Black folks over there that are lamenting their lack of rights and the anti-Blackness that's happening in their country. You can't go over there. You can't go there. It's too political. No, come back. You're too far out there. Can't have you engaging in civil discourse about the violence happening to the AAPI community. You can't. That's too far. Come back. Whoa. You're like accepting and affirming and inviting of queer folks. You can't, that's too far. Come back. But Spirit lead me where my trust is without borders. You call me out upon the water. Y'all don't believe that. You don't really believe what you're singing when you said that. Because if you did, the God that you follow out into that water, out into that deep stuff, yeah, you'd have more peace. You wouldn't be as worried about what people are saying. You wouldn't be as worried about somebody creating some devil shoes. You wouldn't flip out when somebody says a man and a woman. It wouldn't be crazy to you that people can see God beyond the male patriarchal box that they have been in. It wouldn't be crazy to you to hear me go, our mother who art in heaven, hallowed be her name. If you really wanted to go out into the deeper water, it wouldn't be wild to you to hear a Black man, a woman of color, a queer, non-binary person talk about God. You wouldn't clutch your pearls if you actually followed the voice that no one else could hear and the formless spirit that no one else could see, that our father Abraham followed out into the wilderness with the dusty ones that led to the very Christianity, the very fundamentalist religion that you are trying so desperately to protect. All right. That's all I got for you today, folks. If you watched this for 24 minutes and you were inspired by it, moved by it, and you haven't shared it yet, I mean, come on. For the dog alone, you should share it. I welcome you sharing it. I invite you to share it because people need to hear it. Not because I think I'm so fresh and so clean. I'm not Derek Jackson. I had to get a Derek Jackson jab in, and maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe I shouldn't have, but the man makes me mad. I can't. Okay. People need to hear it. People have been traumatized and harmed by the way that the people have talked about God and the myopic lens people have for it. And I just, I want to try to help folks get out of that and feel a sense of freedom to hear that they're not alone when they have questions and ideas about God, that it's all good, man. All right. Or woman. Or everything in between. All right. Like I said, no Easter next week. Okay. Go be with your church or be with your family on Easter Sunday. Don't sit in front of a screen watching me because I won't be here. But Friday, Good Friday, I really want to talk to you about Jesus' atheist prayer. So grace and peace. Until next time, folks.